I recently went on a first date after taking nearly a year off from dating. It was also my last date with this particular gentleman, although gentleman is probably not the right word for the person with whom I spent a regrettable 2 hours. I wouldn't call this the worst first date I've ever been on. As a writer, my worst dates are the ones that give me absolutely no material, nothing to laugh or cry about at all. But it was most certainly a no good, terrible, very bad first date. Gain from my misfortune as we relive the wretched evening, step by step, in a new episode of Funny Girl Sex Guide. Guys, if you're doing any of these things, you're doing it wrong. Step 1. Tell a rape joke. The night started off with a text from my date about 10 minutes before we were supposed to meet. He had arrived at the bar early and wanted to know what drink to have waiting for me. What a gentleman, I thought. Maybe the state of dating has gotten better while I've been in self-imposed hibernation. I replied with my order and said I would see him shortly. "I can't promise not to roofie you," he replied. A date rape joke. At my expense, and we haven't even met yet in person? Too soon. Always too soon, but really too soon. Step 2, start bitching. When I arrived at the bar, I spotted Mr. Funny Haha Rape Jokester immediately. He had a surly look on his face, but when I approached and introduced myself, he pulled me in for a hug, which I suppose should have been unsurprising given his previous boundary crossing. "Thank God you're here," he said, as if we were pals instead of two strangers who'd shared nothing but an ill-timed rape joke. "I could not stand to listen to another second of this woman's conversation," he continued loudly, gesturing to a woman sitting less than a foot behind him and well within earshot. For the next 3 minutes, my date complained about the mundane conversation he was forced to listen to while he waited for me. "But now you're here," he said brightly. Oh, goody. Step 3, negging. "For a second, I thought you had a huge booger in your nose," were the next words out of my date's mouth, "but it's just your nose ring." Step 4, give her a reason to question your sexuality. My beer was waiting for me as promised, and I figured that while a roofie joke was tasteless, it was also likely a sign that my beer was roofie-free. My date, on the other hand, had already plowed through his first of 5 bourbons and was ready for another. "I think this bartender hates me," he bitched when the guy pouring drinks didn't immediately rush to take his order, "but he's got a great ass." Step 5, be a goddamn princess about your personal bubble. My date and I did have some decent conversation finally, but every time I started to think he wasn't a complete turd, we would be interrupted by another patron's desire to order a drink from the bar. It wasn't their presence that was the problem though. My date was the one doing the interrupting, either by rolling his eyes or loudly complaining about the person who dared graze his shoulder with their hand as they went to retrieve their rum and coke. "If this person bumps into me one more time, I'm going to say something," he all but screamed about 3 different people who sidled up to the bar over the course of the night. Step 6, talk about poop. My inner age is somewhere between 8 and 14, so poop remains one of my favorite topics, but not on a first date. I certainly don't need to know that you just took a crap. I don't even know your last name yet, so I'm definitely not ready to know how regular your bowel movements are. Step 7, go on a rant about fat people. You're probably wondering why I stuck around for a second beer when clearly this date was on a downward spiral. But that's why I did stick around, to see where the downward spiral would eventually land. "Can I admit something to you?" my date asked. "I hate fat people. Come on, big isn't beautiful, it's unhealthy and gross." He went on for a bit before I interrupted him and shut him down with some facts and figures and a pointed question about why he gives a fuck about something that is not his business, especially when, as a smoker, he's in no position to be judging the health of others. I gulped down the rest of my beer and announced that I needed to go home. To walk my dog, to shower, to fold laundry, to watch Scandal, to do anything but be on this terrible, no good, very bad date for a second longer. So guys, if you're doing any of these things, you're doing it wrong. For more content like this, check out thefrisky.com and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time for another episode of Funny Girl Sex Guide.